For years we've tied flies where we've put our dubbing material onto the thread, shaped the body of the fly, and that's that. This technique, we put the dubbing onto the chenille, as we'll see in a sec. So to start the Fuzzle Bugger, what we do, we've got a marabou plume here. It's a nice soft one. To get a big long tail, we want to use the whole feather. So we just stroke it all back, snip the end off. I should have had the thread on the hook already. Tie our marabou on just behind the eye and then all the way down along the hook. Doing that creates an even underbody. Now you'll see this tail's nice and fluffy. It's going to be blown around in the wind. We're outdoors here, so what you can do if it's annoying you, just wet your fingers a little bit, just stroke it, and that'll keep it pretty much out of the way. Now we take some chenille and tie our chenille on again just behind the eye and all the way down along the hook. Half a dozen good wraps at the end, and then take our thread forward. Our marabou's become dry again. Just wet our fingers, stroke it out of the way. Tease a bit of the dubbing material out and just wind it in or rub it into the chenille. Dub it in and put a fair bit on, but again just little bits at a time and add more as we go. Little bits and add more, little bits and add more as we go. Just wind it into the chenille so it's on like that. Then using the rotary function of our vise, we'll just wind our chenille forward till we get just behind the eye. 3 or 4 good wraps over there. Snip him off. Now we've used our scissors the same angle as the hook point. By using that, you can't get any of the material stuck in front of the eye of the hook and it's all cut off. There. Now we just put a little bit of the dubbing material onto the thread. This forms a little bit of the collar. You can change the colour of the material, put a different coloured collar on the front, pull that marabou out of the way. Just wind this on, stroke it back. Every time we go around, just stroke the fibres back. Keeps them out of the way. Just form a nice neat little head there with our wet finisher. We'd finish the fly, we'd finish him twice. When we're using Velcro to rough the flies up, it's always best to wet finish them twice. So we take our piece of Velcro material now and just basically rub him back and forward, pulling all the fibres out of the dubbing material. That gives us our legs. You pull him back, give the fly a flick, that makes all the fibres stand up. If the tail's a little bit too long for you, just come down here, hold it and tear it. And that gives us an uneven tail. If you cut it with scissors, it looks really unnatural. And that's basically a Fuzzle Bugger.
I've been using this fly for a year in fresh and salt water, and it's deadly. For saltwater fishing, tie it on a Mustad S71 SS O'Shaughnessy hook. It's a great brim fly. Good fishermen always have a plan B to fall back on when things go awry. Being flexible is a big part of fishing success. I was heading across the lovely rural northwest of Tasmania with locals Leroy Tarrant and Mason Paul. Strong winds in Bass Strait had delayed our plans to fish those waters, and Leroy's plan B was to look for sheltered water. So we headed for the big rivers of Tasmania's west coast. This was a place I'd heard a fair bit about over the years, but had never visited. The Arthur River and its tributaries winds its way out of the lakes and tarns of the rugged northwest corner of the Central Highlands. This is a big, deep, dark river that flows through temperate rainforest and is navigable through much of its lower 20 kilometres from the mouth. The waters are tannin-stained, and the fallen rainforest trees have filled it with prodigious snags. Mason has been coming here for many years in search of big trout, especially the sea-run brownies that migrate in and out of these west coast rivers. We slowly cruised the edges looking for signs of fish and their food. Leroy followed in his own boat, and between us we covered both banks. One of the great things about the work I do travelling the country is that I get to meet so many terrific people. And these terrific people take me to some very special places, and we're in one of them at the moment. Arthur's River is on the west coast of Tasmania. It's only been opened up in the last few years really with a sealed road. There's a very small community at the mouth of the river, and I've been told that this is a river that is famous for its huge trout. Let's see how we go. The fly I've selected is a beadhead version of Muzz Wilson's Fuzzle Bugger. I think this is a really great fly. Designed and developed in Australia by Murray Wilson. And I've selected the beadhead model so that I can get it down a little. Hits the water, I'll give it 5 seconds or so to sink. I'm only fishing a floating line but with a long leader, and because the fish in here are reputed to be so large, I've opted for a 10-pound fluorocarbon tippet. This is the fly when it's dry. This is what it looks like dry. The big fluffy tail there. But this is what it looks like when it's wet. It's very much like a small bait fish. And that marabou tail has some fantastic mobility in the water, and it really looks like a little fish swimming. Ah yes, got him, white bait spout splashing. Trout in the snags, eh? We were looking for signs of whitebait being attacked, and it seemed the fish were in amongst the snags. The first was a beautifully marked small dark brown trout, a resident river fish that came from a shower of bait fish. Always safe to use a net. Learned my lesson. That wild Arthur's River brown trout. Not big, but spectacularly marked. We drifted downstream through one of the most spectacular landscapes I'd ever fished in. We cast a fish and showering bait tight in against the bank, and eventually found what we'd come here for. There he was. Yes! He's a monster. Oh, right. Got a head like a robber's dog. Oh, there's no snags in there.
Oh, he's a lovely fish.
Come here, big fella. Better get that net ready, mate. We'll just take one shot at this. Easy double figures.
Oh yes, look at it. That.
Look at that!
Oh, you are kidding me. That. I've been fishing for how long for a fish like that?
He's over 10 feet.
Yeah, easy.
Okay, we're back on this side. No.
He's an absolute.
It's a pig. Just a pig. Maybe this time. Maybe this time. No.
Oh, that is an absolute tank.
We've found one of his sharks up the river. Very quiet on the boat at the moment. This is tense stuff because this fish is enormous, absolutely enormous, fat gutted thing. A monster brownie. Should be close now. Oh. Yes! Yeah! Have it go! Sweet Lord!
I have never seen a... Oh, you are kidding me. Have a go.
God!
Arthur River, have a look at that.
Guess a look.
On
That
the
is
fly.
incredible.
I am...
Look at the hump back on it. Okay, let's get that back in the net and in the water. We want to keep it fresh because I've... Oh, you're kidding me. That's 20 pounds. This is easily the biggest trout I've ever caught or even seen. Bigger than anything I've ever seen in a hatchery. It's a wild fish from the Arthur's River. A monster brownie. I don't know how much it weighs. We're going to weigh it. We've got a set of scales here. My call is between 15 and 20 pounds. It's so broad-shouldered and broad-backed, it's impossible to tell. It's not terribly long, and it has a reasonably small head, but its girth is phenomenal. So let's put the lie detector on it. What's your call, Mason?
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with it. It must be between 15 and 20.
Okay, I'll let you take all the weight on that. We'll weigh the net later.
Let's have a look.
What's that say?
It says 7.8.
7.8. 7.827. That's fantastic. That's
the
extraordinary.
biggest wild brown trout that I've ever seen.
Yeah. How long have you been fishing this bit of
I've been
coast?
fishing. I've fished this river over, probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Targeting a fish like this. Always been trolling with big jointed rebels, and you, my friend, have taken it on the fly. What a champion!
Oh, thanks, mate. On a 5-weight too. And the fly I used was one of Muzz Wilson's Fuzzle Buggers. It is so fat. What on earth would something like that be eating in here to get that fat? You know, possums, platypus.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a magnificent
And it's
fish.
in beautiful condition.
It is.
All right, I really would like to get some pics of that, so let's just hold it there while I set my camera up. It's a good thing to do. If you've got a fish like this, a real trophy fish, don't pull it out of the water and then set your camera up. Leave it in the water, leave the hook in it in case you have an accident and it gets away. Leave the hook in it so you can hang on to it. Set your camera up, then pull it out and it's still nice and fresh and wet. Don't pull it out and leave it on the deck while you set your camera up. So I'm going to set my camera up now and get some stills. What a fish. How long was it?
83 centimetres.
It's almost as big as my biggest barra. Oh, goodness me.
Well
How
done,
exciting.
mate.
Thanks,
You're the man,
Leroy.
mate. You're the man.
Hey, thanks for bringing us here, you know. That was a good call of yours. We're blowing off offshore. What are we going to do?
I thought there's no use going up the Central Highlands. We should go somewhere that's a bit special, that bit different, where you've got the possibility of something like that, and that's exactly what happened, you know?
Yeah. I'm actually keeping this because I want to get it mounted. I think every now and then in our lives we mount a special fish, and this is pretty special. So I'm going to take it home, try not to damage it at all, and if I can actually lift it, I'm going to get some photos to record the colour and the moment, and then put it away. Take plenty.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm not smiling enough, won't you?
No.
My face is aching from smiling.
Big smile.
That's it. Wonderful. What's the story on these sea runners, fellas?
Well, there's 2 runs of sea run trout a year. One, traditionally they start when the whitebait starts to run. And this year we've had a really good season on whitebait because there's been no rain. So the whitebait start a lot sooner and they're in all the rivers really thick. So we've had a lot of sea run trout following them in. So October, November is the first run. It was a bit earlier this year because, as I said, no rain. And then there's another run of whitebait again, late January, and we get another run of sea run trout following them in. And traditionally, that's when the bigger sea runners are around.
Right, okay. What, bigger than this?
Not bigger than that. No, not bigger than that at all. Mason spends a fair bit of time, as do a lot of people, chasing sea runners. And any of the north and west coast rivers really produce these bigger fish. I haven't heard of big fish like that coming out of the east coast rivers, but yeah, I mean that takes the cake from what I've ever seen. Definitely.
What is a sea runner? I mean, it's a brown trout, isn't it?
Yeah, and it lives out at sea. A lot of people confuse resonance brown trout that move down systems to feed on the whitebait, as against these fish that live out at sea around the headlands and other places most of their lives, and they only come into these systems to either spawn or to chase the whitebait.
Right, okay. So the whitebait follows them in, they're just like a magnet, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look at the condition. I mean, the condition on that fish is phenomenal. Small head and enormous fat body. I mean, it almost looks deformed, but yeah, spectacular. But that was a very doer fight. I wouldn't call it a spectacular. It's probably just such a heavy fish.
That's the thing. When a fish gets that sort of size, they can't expend energy. They're just too fat.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually took the fight right up to it. I saw it on the surface fairly early on, and I knew it was a reasonable sized fish, so I really stuck it to it. I was fishing a 10-pound tippet.
Yeah.
You did warn me that there were going to be some big fish in there, so I went to a 10-pound tippet. And on a 5-weight rod, you just can't break a 10-pound tippet, so I really stuck it to it. And a lot of snags in this river, and I didn't want it to get deep and get away.
Yeah.
Extraordinary thing.